Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Get It podcast, where we get it every day. Our mission here at Get is to get people who are not currently involved in the political process involved. And my name is Roy, a.k.a. the Carpenter's Apprentice, and I have some wonderful co-hosts here with me, including our first ever time on this seat. Ma'am, can you tell them who you are?
B.Kay Richter. I am a journalist.
Very good.
Chad Hankins. I am a lesser journalist, mine's more writing, because, you know, smart assery and all.
What's up? It's Ryan. Roy didn't start with me, so I have time to think about what I'm going to say. I'm a marketer, lover of nonprofits, and I'm excited.
All right, so folks, we're here today to talk about something very important. People are going to the ballots right now to talk about 10 constitutional amendments, and we're going to go over each and every single one of them. But before we get started, is there anything off the bat you guys want to say about these amendments?
The first thing I want to say is bear with us. We will make this fun. I know that when you start talking about propositions and constitutional amendments, right. I can hear your eyes glazing. I can feel them rolling to a sprain, but I promise it's not as painful as it seems.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's actually some that have value for the state of Texas, and I'm excited to see them take fruit, and hopefully they get passed.
I feel like some of them are boring, I'll be honest. Some of them are very in the weeds, so we're going to get into all of that. Also want to make you guys aware that early voting ends on November the 1st, and the election day is November the 5th. So write that down. Make sure that you are aware of all these things as we go over the propositions.
And of course, we're talking to people who don't traditionally vote. So let's talk a little bit about what it's like to vote, how you vote, what you need to take when you go vote. Does anybody have anything they want to say on that? If not, we can start from the top.
Well, I think first it's probably important we tell people the dates they can go vote.
Thank you, Chad.
So from this moment to November 1st, we've got early voting. That's something you can do at any polling place anywhere near you. You don't have to go to the one by your house. So you can Google the one by work and just pop in there on lunch or whatever. And then the election itself is November 5th. Also, in the state of Texas, your employer is legally required to pay you for 2 hours to go and vote. So if you find an empty spot, you get your vote in quick, maybe knock off about an hour and a half.
Oh, that's time right
there. Make a little day of it,
That's nice. I didn't know that trick.
We talked about it before, but
we've literally talked about it on this podcast, Roy, but
okay, so then let's talk about the voter ID requirements. If you go there and you want to vote, you're going to have your Texas ID, your driver's license, or you can have any number of other things. Let me just go through them real quick. There's an election identification certificate that you can get from DPS, and that is like an ID just to vote. Outside of that, if you have a personal ID, not just a driver's license, you can use that. This is Texas after all, so you can also use your license to carry as something to vote. After that, you could use your military ID. You could use your citizenship certificate, as long as it has your photograph on it. And last but not least, you can use your passport.
Yep. And you have to be at least 18 for one. You must be registered at least 30 days before the election. What most young people, honestly, you're already registered to vote. You probably went to some event and you signed your name down and you've registered to vote and you don't even know it. So that's fine.
And if you're not sure,
well, you have to be a Texas resident, U.S. resident.
And if you're not sure if you're registered to vote or not, it doesn't hurt you to re-register. So it never hurts to just fill out that application one more time.
Also, you can just Google the shit. Like you can look it up on the website. It'll tell you if you're registered or not.
Yeah.
I think there's like 3 different state of Texas websites you can go to, none of which I recall offhand.
Perfect.
Yeah. Wait. Let's try am I registered?
I know, right? That's probably one.
All right. Well, let's cut the bullshit. Let's get to these propositions.
All right.
So let's talk about the first one. The way that it's going to read on the ballot is as follows. The constitutional amendment permitting a person to hold more than one office as a municipal judge at the same time. Does anybody understand what that means off the hand, or do I need to go into this?
I don't really understand it, to be quite honest.
So it's not like they can be like a governor and a judge and a lawyer, it's a transfer so that they can serve in that capacity of being a judge in multiple municipalities, because there are smaller municipalities around Texas that don't have access to strong judges or enough judges, or they're like, well, we got 4 horses and one of them kicked our judge and now we can't. Now we ain't got no judge or whatever.
That story.
I think that's what happens. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's hard to tell. I'm reading all these different things here, and I can't tell if it's just judges that you'd be a judge in multiple areas.
What says municipal court judges?
Right, but it says hold more than one office as a municipal judge. Oh, so it's only that. So you could be that and
in
city
different
council.
counties. Exactly.
Okay, I got it.
Yeah.
Well, that's bullshit, though. I mean, come on. You can't pick one. Like, pick your job and do your job. You can't have two.
I mostly agree with that, but I think that I kind of understand if you have the tiny neighboring town, or like in San Antonio, there's about 7 or 8 little towns just inside of the city, which is weird when you move here from somewhere else and try to figure out why you're in a different city all of a sudden. There are circumstances in which I kind of get it. But I think that it's a weird line to skirt. Like,
exactly.
How many municipalities are they going to be able to hold a judgeship in? Is this going to become sort of like a power move across the state?
Exactly.
Like, I think there are a lot of dangers with it that you kind of need to consider, as well as the, kind of one horse town sharing a judge with the neighboring city.
Right. I see it as a power play, for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
Quickly.
It's purposely written to be elusive, number one.
Yeah.
Multiple at the same time. Okay, when are we going to put a cap on that? You know what I mean? We have to limit. For one, if we're allowing it, then we have to put a limit on it. So I feel like it can become a power play in some way or another. So I'm iffy on this one. I rate boring.
Okay, listen.
Man, this one's got the most potential for tea and shit in it.
Whatever.
Maybe boring.
Oh,
This
you're
one's
right.
got
No,
an
you're right.
opportunity
You're
for
right.
corruption.
I could honestly see
scandals
a
spreading
TNT show
across
about
the state
this.
of
Yeah.
Texas.
You're
Hell
right.
yeah! Reality show following the judge from municipality to municipality. Hell yeah!
If anything, I see it helping areas that are more rural areas. So, for example, every county in Texas usually has 2 justices of the peace that are automatically elected to hold that position. Now, when you are a JP, you're not just making decisions as a judge, but you're also announcing things as a death. So, for example, if there's a shooting or if there's a death or an accident or anything, every time that happens within the county that you are a JP in, you have to go and basically sign off on the death certificate. And I can see if you only have 2 JPs within a county, I can see how that could be extremely difficult.
I'd rather take the chance that they might be inconvenienced in a small town like that than the chance that maybe somebody goes on a power trip and becomes judge of Texas.
Yeah, honestly,
Touche.
I agree with Roy. We've got another one.
Right. And
That's our third or fourth time one.
To play devil's advocate, though, I will say rural towns far outnumber the amount of populous towns in Texas.
Yeah. I could be talking from a city boy perspective.
Yeah, exactly. We see it from that point of view, but there are far more rural areas in Texas than there are developed areas.
All right, on to Proposition 2. Here we go. This is how it's going to read on the ballot. The constitutional amendment providing for the issuance of additional general obligation bonds by the Texas Water Development Board in an amount not to exceed $200 million to provide financial assistance for the development of certain projects in economically distressed areas.
I do understand it, but I understand it from the standpoint of what recently happened in Seguin, Texas.
Let's hear it.
Yeah, tell us.
So in Seguin, Texas, they made a decision to pretty much dry up the lakes and recreational water areas within that area. So it was the Guadalupe Water District, if I'm not mistaken. No, they've since gone back and forth. There was some court traffic with that. A judge basically put a hold on it until some decisions could be made. But basically the water district came out and said, hey, these dams are unsafe. There's no way that we can repair them. It's probably going to take 2 years or so to do that. And so we're going to drain all these lakes and recreational areas while we are working on that project. And there was a huge backlash. And then also, it was a matter of money. Who was going to pay for these repairs to these dams, to these infrastructures that were essentially not working, that were leading to flooding? So.
Okay. All right.
Gents, any background from you guys?
Well, my thing that I really enjoy with this particular one is that it does there is a specification about what that economically distressed means. They specified as 75% household income is at or below 75% of the statewide median income level. So it's a little bit less obtuse than some of the other ones that we have, and I like the idea of focusing on infrastructure and waterways, and especially in economically distressed areas, because we already know tax dollars are going to the the nice neighborhoods, they're not drinking lead. They're, you know what I mean? Like they're already they're good. So it's nice to see that little bit of consideration. Of course, there's always the worry of like who's going to get the contracts, how's the money going to be managed, which is true of literally any kind of funding bill. But for that part right there, I think that that's something that we can kind of. I think that that's a nice little something I can get behind.
Yeah. And they gave us a number, not to exceed $200 million. Yeah. They also gave us a number, which is interesting because they can be held accountable then for that number, right? So you gave us a number, and that's what we want.
Anytime you're doing something for poor people, I mean, come on, it's like a game winner. I am a little bit concerned that they're earmarking the money for only that, and this is also a constitutional amendment to provide that forever.
Exactly.
That makes me a little queasy, but if you're helping the poor, who gives a damn? Let's just keep it moving. Mm-hmm. Anything else you guys want to say about this?
Water districts and water development boards aren't exactly the most transparent, especially in their dealings, in the type of decisions that they make. For example, the people of Guadalupe County did not really see them draining their recreational areas. That kind of came out of nowhere. And for you to have a residence by a lake and enjoy that lake, and then even have a business centered around that recreational area, and then for all of a sudden for it to be just drained because of flood damage or damage control to flood areas, that essentially is going to destroy your business. And I feel like that should never have been an option.
I agree. Okay. Anything else? And if not, let's move on to Proposition 3.
Right,
okay, very good. Here we go. Prop 3, here's how it's going to read on your ballot. The constitutional amendment authorizing the legislature to provide for a temporary exemption from ad valorem taxation of a portion of the appraised value of certain property damaged by a disaster.
Man, look at you getting through that little Latin right there.
What's it? Hey, man. Hey.
I liked it.
I've seen that.
Right before the show. All
right. Sound it out.
Wikipedia, they said it for me. Yeah.
That one is that's one of those eyes glazed over type of ones, I think. But I also think it's one of the more important ones that's on there. So it's okay. So when you read it on its face, a lot of glazing. But what it means and translates to is basically that they can create temporary property tax exemptions for people with property damage in governor-declared disaster areas. So, if you get hit by a hurricane, governor declares it a disaster, you don't have to be saddled with the additional burden of, oh shit, my property taxes are coming up, even though my property is now a hole.
Yeah.
Or even if it, now, of course, there's the caveats of what do they mean by like what amount of damage are we going to need? And, sure, governor declared disaster is great, but, I would be interested in seeing exactly where they would draw that line. But on its face, I think that it's nice to give some tax relief to people who are, dealing with more than enough as victims of a disaster.
For sure.
I want to play devil's advocate really quickly, if I can, Ryan. Where do they predict these disaster areas are going to be? I haven't seen any studies that can predict climate change or even disaster areas, and for them to say, okay, well now we're going to give them a tax exemption, that's scary.
Well, I don't know. I think that's a misinterpretation of it, because what you're saying is that you want to know where these places are going to be, but this doesn't even kick in until the governor declares it a disaster area. Right. So you're putting the cart before the horse a little bit, I think. I think, even when you're talking about Harris County, where there are rich folks, any place that there's rich folks, there are poor folks living very close by to work for those rich folks. So if they can get a discount, or not a discount, but maybe just a temporary standoff on some of these property taxes, that's great. And then on a more fundamental level, anytime you can keep money in the hands of the people and out of the hands of the government, well, that's where I'm at. I like that.
Yeah, we know.
We know. So before we get all cold dead hands over here, what I would say is, you like if the trailer park I grew up in as a kid got wiped off the map, okay, then I don't mind the rich people at the street getting a little bit of tax relief too, if it also meant that, my family got the same thing. Like, I think that there is going to always be some balance, and there's always going to be some favoring, and there's always going to be somebody who doesn't need it. But to me, I would like to see the the emphasis and focus maybe on the people who do need it. Maybe we go back to another amendment in the future and try to figure out, is there like a cost of living adjustment, or is that even necessary? Or is it enough that if somebody who is wealthy potentially loses damn near everything, or they lose something too, and even if they have the money to pay for it, Roy's 100% right. There are people who live right by those wealthy people.
Is that another agreement?
Isn't that crazy? Constitutional amendments.
Another thing too, what you have to look at is that my position before was like, but if you notice that these natural disasters are happening far more frequently, right? Yeah. And I grew up in Harris County, for one. I was born and raised there. I will say that in my lifespan, I've seen 3 or 4 different natural disasters that have hit and done significant damage to that county, you know what I mean? So now that these are obviously going to be a part of our natural lives, which is sad to say, but there needs to be something in place. Because, even now there are still people that are waiting for their money for Hurricane Harvey, right? So before we even are able to give them that relief, can we give them something? You know what I mean? So I feel like if it has to become something as a part of the Constitution, then it just has to be that. But
B.K., to your point, I don't know if I can say where I got this cheat sheet here, but I have a cheat sheet in front of me. One of the local parties here put it out, and they put what they suggested for these propositions. One of the things that they put under Proposition 3 was caution. They said they were for it, but caution. This proposal could result in critical loss of income needed by municipalities to provide essential services such as schools, libraries, playgrounds, city streets, police, fire, emergency EMS, as well as costs resulting from a natural disaster. I could potentially see something like this bankrupting a school district, because if all of their money is coming from the property taxes, you would get fucked at the end of the year.
So you're saying, is it rerouting funds? Is that what
No, it's not rerouting funds, because they're never going to get it.
Yeah, they're just not doing the property taxes in those. So yeah, there is a danger and there is a risk. But my whole thing is let's not pretend the government doesn't have money. I know they like to, but let's not sit here and act like they're going to be bankrupting a school district. I understand the impetus for that concern, but fuck, that'd have to be a hell of a disaster, and that would have to be a very long-term loss in property taxes. And, in the immediate, I think that, people having that bit of relief in that moment means a lot more on a wider scale economically than saying, well, shit, we could have to change some of our funding. Mm-hmm. We might have to cut government contracts down a little bit. The governor's best friend may not get that second fucking pool when he does that road job that's going to take 18 years. You know what I mean? The money exists.
Well, I think that was a very good conversation all around. Let's move on to the next proposition that we're talking about. This is going to be Prop 4. Here's how it's going to read on your ballot. The constitutional amendment prohibiting the imposition of an individual income tax, including a tax on individuals' share of a partnership and unincorporated association income.
We have to take our time on this one.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, we're going to take our time. Get comfortable. All right.
So
get some popcorn.
Should I go a little bit further into detail on what that is?
Yes.
Yeah, let's talk about what individual income tax is.
Okay. Well, right now in Texas, we do not pay an income tax.
Right.
We pay property taxes. Mm-hmm. That's how the government gets funded.
And sales taxes.
Right. Oh, sales tax, excuse me, yeah. But a personal income tax or a tax like this that would be on a partnership or an unincorporated association, that would mean that they could tax your actual income. I think one of the beauties of Texas and Florida is that we do not have an income tax. It's something that brings people here all the time. So for me, I would hate to see even more taxes going out of my check to go to the state taxes, in addition to sales taxes and property taxes.
Okay, so I agreed at first, but what you have to know is that this will take the place of other taxes. So they're not going to put a personal income tax and a sales tax and a property tax.
But that's how it is in other states. No, right. Got all of them.
But what I'm saying is this would take the place of it, for one, right? So as of right now, we have a sales tax that is equal across the board, right? So if you're poor, if you're rich, you pay 0.0825% all the time, right? If you look at it on a scale, is that fair that me as a poor person, $50 on groceries, paying that sales tax, you know what I mean, means a lot more to me than it would to a rich person, right? So right now it's already uneven. So the playing field is already uneven, right?
But you would have to assume that a rich person is buying more.
This income tax, though, you'd be paying a percentage of the income that you have, right? Yeah. So if you don't have $100,000, then you're not paying as much as someone that has $100,000.
That's assuming
income.
that there's going to be a progressive tax rate.
Right.
Here, so I grew up in a place that had income tax, state income tax, and I haven't seen anything that says that this is meant to replace any other tax, because honestly, it's not a proposal. What you need to look at is this is not. No one is proposing even implementing a state income tax.
Right.
This is only a ballot measure for the amendment to make it so that we never can. Now, I find that a little bit interesting personally, because right away I'm kind of like, well, why are we doing that when there's no threat of there being a state income tax right now? It's not proposed. It's not on any ballot. It's not. I don't see anyone campaigning on it in any real serious way. So the only thing that I can come up with is that with all the people moving here, like you were talking about, Roy, and when you look at like the way the maps are drawn in Texas, and you look at every major city is blue and the rural areas are red, but those blue parts are getting a little bit bigger with everybody coming in.
Yeah.
So the only thing I can think of is that our current legislature is concerned about the state of Texas turning blue, and then the Democrats coming in and putting in that tax.
Oh, that's my.
That is honestly my conspiracy about a lot of these propositions.
Is that they're tying the hands for future?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's 100%
because they're using words such as never, right? Never. Why are we deciding on something that's going to happen in 10 to 15 years, or in the next 20 years, or like things that will affect my child and my grandchild? Right? We don't need to decide those things right now. But what I think it is they see an awakening. There are people that are getting involved in politics, and they want to be able to pass bills and laws that will say never, to protect these rights forever. So it's like never. You signed that bill. We decided on that proposition, right? We should not be implementing propositions that say never. In general, I just don't believe it, because circumstances are changing. The scope of Texas is changing every single year.
But that's where these propositions get crazy.
Exactly.
Because on some of them, you can make that argument. Then on other ones, you're like, well, like for instance, we just talked about that $200 million.
True.
And that was a forever designation.
Did it say forever?
It was a constitutional amendment, I believe.
Well, so
they're all constitutional.
They all are.
And
so this would take
on the other
another
side,
constitutional amendment to
exactly. I was going to say
undo it.
And that to me is just not. B.K., I don't believe we've heard from you on this one.
Okay, so when I think when I think of the population of Texas, and I think it's expanding literally by the day. There's so many people moving here. I think of where are they coming from? They're coming from California. That's without a doubt. They're coming from California, and they're coming from California because California has a state income tax, and it is bitch. It's about kind of affecting that migration of people that are moving to Texas, and essentially saying, okay, well, what is attractive about moving to Texas?
Well, I don't think that I don't think that the lack of state income tax is the only appeal. Texas has a cost of living that differs from most other states,
right,
or a lot of other states right now.
But the income tax things is big.
Well, I know, and I'm not trying to give away any secrets, but the cost of living in Texas is pretty fucking low. I don't know if we want to spread that news too much, but when I came down here from Colorado, it blew my fucking mind how I was like, oh, I can afford to live here and only work one job? Well, look at me. I felt like the bougiest fucker on the block because I could have one job and pay my rent and eat food, and I didn't have to make that. You know what I mean? Like,
didn't have to choose.
It's totally different because there are parts of Colorado where that wasn't a reality 10 fucking years ago, and you can forget about it now. I'm not going to get into Colorado politics, but it's a whole other thing now. So it's one of those that the permanency of it is a bit disconcerting, and the motivation behind it. And kind of looking at that that's where I kind of have pause with it, because I love the idea of not paying more in taxes. Yeah, I get that, but then the other part of me is like, wait, why the fuck are they doing this when nobody's even talking? Like nobody's even trying to put that out.
Well, you've heard the theories, you've heard our thoughts. Anything else you want to say?
Yeah, like just voting on a proposition that says never is just kind of dangerous for one. And you already can't impose this income tax without a statewide vote in general. So for one, I feel like this proposition is unnecessary, and I think that there is an ulterior motive. So I'm saying no.
Again, I say anytime you can keep your money out of the hands of the government, you need to do it. So I like this one.
We're back at it, Roy. We managed to split it back again.
But again,
I agree with Ryan on this.
But again, this is not even voting on the income tax. This is just saying,
voting to say never.
But
you need to hide. Look, I don't want to get crazy about this, but you got to tie the government's hands because they will try to take your money.
I don't want to get crazy about this, but forever, you shut it down and you shut it down permanently.
Exactly.
But I don't want to get overboard.
Yeah,
you're right though. That's right.
I'm sorry.
That was a great point. I know you're making fun of me, but it was a great point.
I know. I know you.
So to clarify, Roy now agrees with me.
Well, now that we're all not in agreement, let's move on to Proposition 5. Here's how it will read on your ballot. The constitutional amendment dedicating the revenue received from the existing state sales and use taxes that are imposed on sporting goods to the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department and the Texas Historical Commission to protect Texas's natural areas, water quality, and history by acquiring, managing, and improving state and local parks and historic sites while not increasing the rate of state sales and use tax.
Hells yes.
Yeah, I'm into that.
I'm super. Imagine the amount of sporting goods that are sold in this state.
Yeah.
Son of a bitch. I've never seen people so excited about high school football in my goddamn life. That's a lot of shoulder pads, and that can do a lot of good for wildlife. Was it water was involved too, right?
Historical sites, parks.
Hell yeah.
Can you imagine how badass the parks are going to be?
I'm fucking pumped on that one.
Okay.
Shit, yeah. You know how that shit's expensive as fuck.
It is. Yep.
This one's getting my boring stamp. I'm sorry. But to get a little more into it, you know how many things in Texas need funding right now? So I get it, right? We should manage, but to divert that much funding to this when we have children that don't have lunch, we have people that need updated school books, technology. I just feel like there are better ways, and to put this stamp on it and saying that these funds are only going here kind of makes me a little uncomfortable.
Here's the thing,
though. I don't know.
So here's where, I agree there are a lot of places that need funding, and there are a lot of areas of the state that need funding. Totally agree there. And that is always going to be the case no matter what is proposed. There's always going to be, well, what about this? What about that?
Right.
And I get that. But this isn't talking about putting every dollar from the whole state into, we're talking about
sporting goods. And you just talked about how much.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of sporting goods getting sold in Texas.
Yes.
That was mostly being an asshole about football.
No, but it's true.
All right, but I mean, it's true.
Yes.
But, you've got to think yes, we need to do something about all of those, and I agree. Let's start calling the congressman and let's try to get something on a proposition on it. I have no problem with that at all. But what I will say is, if we lose those natural areas, we lose wildlife, we lose historical sites, we don't get them back. That's it. That's permanent. Now, I understand. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying, well, fuck that kid's sandwich. I want to make sure the Alamo is cool. Don't get me. That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, if we have the measure on the ballot, and it's something that is not overswinging, and it's not diverting funds away from anything specific as it stands, and we're going to put it towards something long-term and good that those kids can enjoy after they get out of school, I'm into it.
Yeah, I mean, and there's already funds devoted to that, but I think this just guarantees that they're actually going to what they say that they're going to. But I mean,
I think that was a great point. It's something to really pump the brake. I think you got to look at all of these with a lot of skepticism because somebody's presenting, or some number of people are presenting all these ideas to us in either their best interest or to promote their agenda.
Yep.
So you got to question all of these. It's a great point, Ryan. Let us move on to Proposition 6, where I know that we're going to have a little bit to say about it. Here's how it's going to read on your ballot. Proposition 6, the constitutional amendment authorizing the legislature to increase by $3 billion the maximum bond amount authorized for the Cancer Prevention and Research Institute of Texas.
Right.
Folks,
so
what y'all
there's
think?
already $3 billion that are diverted to this, right?
There's already a $3 billion?
There's already $3 billion. They're
bank
proposing that we commit another $3 billion. So first of all, can you show me where this $3 billion went in the first place?
Great
Have
point.
you cured cancer? All right.
Right.
It's going to take more than $3 billion to cure.
Touche.
Plus, curing cancer is kind of a myth because there's so many different kinds of cancer that it's you can't cure cancer as a concept or a whole. You can, find more effective treatments for different kinds of cancer, and then hopefully someday we'll cure one and snowball and all that shit. But I do agree with where where are the receipts for the $3 billion that's already getting spent?
Right.
Because they kind of smuggle it in on you.
Exactly.
Because like when I first saw this, I was like, fuck yeah, cancer research, let's do it. Let's get healthy. Let's do this thing, Texas. But then it's like, well, wait a minute. They're doubling it. And I don't know what they did with the last $3 billion, and I don't see people coming forward and saying, look, this is where all the money went. This is where it's going to go. We just have, hey, look, we researched cancer. Cancer's scary.
Right.
Y'all don't like cancer, right?
Exactly.
And then they're taking that. And so it's kind of one of those things of like, I want to say yes. I want to say, hell yeah, let's put that money there. But I want to know, where has it gone before? Where has it gone historically? Because I think that committing that money is a great idea, as long as that money is if it's all getting funneled away to the pharmaceutical industry and, different medical suppliers and all that, then but if it's going into actual like research.
And who's regulating this? That's what I want to know. And who's going to regulate this extra $3 billion?
Yep. B.K.
I think transparency and accountability are 100% important. And let me preface that, and you have to be able to show results for any type of venture that you have, be it in business, be it a nonprofit, whatever type of organization that you have, you need to show results. Be it that. With that being said, I'm also a cancer survivor, and it fucking sucked. And any amount of money that you can give to cancer to cure it is 100% warranted. Because let me tell you right now, cancer sucked. The treatments suck. The way that you were treated sucks. And being a survivor of thyroid cancer, I can tell you right now, it wasn't fun. Going to essentially the hospital and having to sign a fucking document that said, oh, by the way, at any point you can fucking die. That is very fucking real. It's so goddamn real. Getting out of the hospital and having to have a certificate assigned to me because I have so much fucking radiation that I am now on the September 11th list because the DPS have scanners that scan for radiation, and I'm radioactive, and I can actually alert that scanner. That's fucking scary. That is fucking scary. So when you go through that and you feel that, you're not okay. You're not okay. It's never gonna be okay. And having death that's basically hit you in the goddamn face before you even turn 30, that fucking sucks. It sucks, guys. So any amount of money you can give to fund cancer treatment, it's 100% warranted, and I will vote for it every single time.
Well, fuck, now I have the fucking responsibility of saying why I wouldn't vote for it. All right, but let me tell you why.
And now counterpoint. Good luck, Roy.
Well, let me tell you, and this pisses me off because what she's saying is absolutely true, but Big Pharma is charging us the highest drug prices in the whole fucking world. And why do they do it? Because they say that they're using that money to fund R&D, research and development. But instead, here we are in Texas putting out another $6 billion from the people's wallets to do R&D because they're not doing what they say with the money. So to me, this is nothing more than a slush fund for big pharma, for medical device manufacturers, and for big corporations. But you're right, B.K. I love you, mama.
Yeah. and I do agree with the funding. My thing is I need more regulation. Like, you need to propose something, right? Because you're asking for $3 billion, not million, billion more dollars. Can you show us where that regulation comes from?
Yeah.
Can you show us where it's going to go and who's going to be held accountable?
Yeah. If it were something where it's like, and every quarter they have to release where all of that money went, line item, like release that to the public, fuck, I'd have not a single fucking issue.
Hey, well,
but
folks,
there's the transparency concern is so it'd be, oof.
All of that is very real, man. Very real.
I mean, that's real, and the fact that they haven't cured it yet, it's totally bullshit. They've AIDS. They basically cured AIDS, and so the fact that they haven't cured cancer, it's not. I honestly feel that it's not that they can't cure it, is that they don't want to cure it.
They don't want to.
Oh, yeah.
They're making so much money. Well, they're making so much money off of sick people, for one. So again, you're asking for more money for R&D, like I said. Where's that going to go?
That shit was a dynamic conversation. But we got more propositions to talk about, so let's move on. This is how the constitutional amendment for Proposition 7 will read on your ballot. The constitutional amendment allowing increased distributions to the available school fund.
There you go, Ryan. Yeah, we solved it.
In one sentence, we solved it. Yeah. All right. Let's get into it. Come on.
Okay, you guys want some more information here? Because I don't know what the fuck that means. Okay, here we go.
So
the School Land Board, an independent entity of the General Land Office, oversees the management, sale, and leasing of more than 13 million acres of land for the permanent school fund. The State Board of Education can then make distributions from this fund to the available school fund. The revenue generated from the land is used to purchase real estate and make investments to help public education through the available school fund. This proposition would increase from $300 million to $600 million, the amount the General Land Office could distribute to the available school fund each year.
We're all about doubling it on this one this time around, right? They're just fucking double it. Look, I think that that's another one where you're like, okay, what the fuck are materials? What are we like? Where again? Here we go again. Now they talk about it's going to provide classroom materials and funding for Texas schools. That's great. It's one of those. I know we don't have Bianca on right now, but I remember, she would talk a lot about that a lot, as a teacher. And I have a lot of friends who are teachers, and it's always the same story about underfunding, not enough materials. And then you get into the school lunch thing, which is fucking bullshit. If those kids are going to go to school, feed them for fuck's sake. Like that. I mean, dear God, it's... anyway, I do want to get into that one because that's kind of what this is about, I guess, right?
Yeah, that's the whole fucking point, Chad.
So it's kind of wondering, like, is school lunch part of that when it comes to materials? What are the materials going to be? Are they strictly going to the classroom? Because I don't want materials to be the superintendent's new fucking Mercedes.
Oh, but let's be clear, because
I want it to be,
this isn't even that, though.
Yeah.
What they're talking about is doubling the amount of money that the General Land Office has to play with to make investments. And it's not as though they've always made the best investments. So this is not a direct pipeline into the schools. Nobody will see new pencils for this tomorrow. It will only go into new investments that you hope pay off later.
Yeah, I was going to say, and then
purposefully elusive.
Right.
Again.
Yeah.
So back to our conspiracy. Something is happening behind the scenes.
That. Yeah.
Somebody wants this to be doubled.
Oh, yeah.
There's a reason. But I agree with Roy. If I'm not seeing a direct result of this, especially in the low income neighborhoods and the low income schools that no one's speaking up for, because the thing about it is that funding, we already know it disproportionately goes to the wealthy, high income areas and neighborhoods. So what I want to see is something that's going to affect low income students and to bring them into the equation. If not, then get this shit out of my face.
Get them fucking lunch.
B.Kay, where you at?
Any amount of money that's going to increase, or any amount of funding that's going to increase money for schools, I think is warranted in every way.
But this bill,
maybe next time we'll get it on the constitutional amendment list. But
this bill just says for them to make more investments. So
yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
Once you put it in that light, it sounds like a little bit of a gamble. Because what if they invested and then that investment fucking bottoms out, and we have another recession? Which
it used to be that we had the Robin Hood, where it was like what you're talking about, where everybody went into a collective pot and it was equally distributed. But cool. This is not how they fucking play these days. These motherfuckers.
No.
All right, here we go. Proposition 8. You guys ready? Here's how it's going to read on your ballot. The constitutional amendment providing for the creation of the Flood Infrastructure Fund to assist in the financing of drainage, flood mitigation, and flood control projects. You guys got that one?
Yeah.
Sure.
And so the money that they were going to use to create this is all going to come from the Texas Rainy Day Fund. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but Texas has been saving money for a minute, and I guess they want the money to go to that.
So how is this not related to Proposition 2?
Proposition 2 was for
because this one has to do with disasters. So it would create a flood infrastructure fund that the Texas Water Development Board could use to finance projects following a disaster, whereas Proposition 2 is about low-income areas getting infrastructure for their waterways. So it's a little bit different, but again, that's the problem with propositions is they're boring as shit a lot of the time. So you kind of are like, well, fuck, this one's water too. The other one was water. Fucking, and so, yeah, but I think it's fairly simple-ish, I think, I don't know. There's always the conspiracies about the funding and where's it going to go. But after disaster, you figure out how to make a floodway. All right. Dig the shit out of that ditch. I don't have strong feelings on this one.
Yeah. Ryan, where you at?
I don't know, because I'm reading that it would be distributed as through loans in some cases and as grants. So...
And if those loans come through, and you're talking about someplace like Natalia, Texas, and they got a massive loan and they couldn't pay it, then that's on the rest of us as taxpayers.
Not only that, if us as taxpayers are paying into this fund, shouldn't it be given as a grant as opposed to a loan? Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm
the
confused.
loan part. I don't have any of that on my laptop. Roy doesn't even have a fucking laptop.
I'm not giving this one the
You can
boring
do things on
stamp.
paper.
Yeah.
So the newspaper Roy bought on the way in doesn't have anything about exactly where the
That's
funding
from Chevron.
is. So maybe that'd be one to look into. I know I'm going to look into that one more to figure out exactly the nature of the funding.
Yeah.
Because if it's loan, I mean, come on, a loan, get the fuck on. Like we're using our money, just use our goddamn money then. Do grants, just like you said, like you're going to loan us our money back. Your large ass knows no bounds.
Yeah, exactly.
If you borrow $100, hey, I'm going to charge you 5% interest on 10 back.
Exactly.
Yeah, like, God,
so I'm not giving this one the boring stamp. I'm giving it the confusion stamp, and let me get back to you on that one.
Anybody else want to say anything before we go ahead?
Confusion, I co-sign that. Yeah. Confusion and get back.
Yeah.
Well, that's the whole point, right?
There you go.
Anything else?
Same.
All right. We got 2 more propositions to talk about, and you guys are going to love these last 2. So let's get to it. Proposition 9 will read on your ballot as follows. The constitutional amendment authorizing the legislature to exempt from ad valorem taxation precious metals held in a precious metal depository located in this state.
I'm giving this boring fucking stamp. Boring.
No. It can't be a boring one.
Okay, you're right.
This is the one that's going to help the rich people the most.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
I was
touche.
like,
Touche.
Yeah.
Fuck no.
This is definitely conspiracy for one, but it is boring to the average American. Like for me,
Yeah, until the lizard people break into their vault, Ryan.
This is like almost literally saying, okay, we're not gonna charge any taxes on oil. That's
this is.
Wait, that's not a precious metal.
It's not a precious metal, but the same exact shit. It's basically
It's
them,
the same,
the
yeah,
wealthy,
like-
making money and not paying taxes on their investments.
You're going to tax me on my vault. Are you
I'm reading here that they don't
Fuck
even
that.
enforce a property tax on precious metals. So for them to try and pass a law that says never.
Well, if you're buying fucking gold, silver, and precious gems and you have the money to put it in a depository, you pay your taxes, guy.
Yeah.
Touche.
And who
I
the
agree.
fuck? What kind of a chump is going to get a fucking depository? You're going to leave that with somebody else? No. You've got gold bullion. You dig that hole, all right? You set a bunch of dummy holes, right? You put little fucking mounds of dirt over each one, but you put the real shit closest to the house. That way, if anybody gets in there, you can grab your fucking gold-plated nines, run out there. Now, I'm too poor to know anything about this shit. Are you fucking serious?
That was way over my head. Okay, obviously I don't have any precious metal.
If anyone wants to dig up,
So Chad has been watching those shows where you like stockpile everything.
Oh, yeah.
You build like
Doomsday
an
prepper,
underground, the Doomsday Preppers, and you build your underground city.
Yeah.
Chad is friends with those people. So
Well, I'm not friends with them yet.
You need to contact Chad.
I'm not friends with him yet, but I am open to it. Just a little. I'm a real shitty prepper because I can't save food, so that's a problem. I tend to just sort of eat what's there. Beer wise, that would probably be something that we'd want to ration maybe ahead of time. I don't know. Anyway, hit me up on Facebook and we'll talk.
Okay, yeah, I was afraid of Roy a little bit, but now I'm like, Chad. But again, I'm gonna say no after talking with my co-host. They did enlighten me. Okay, I'll give you that. You enlightened me, and I now see that it's gonna benefit the rich.
man, I love that Chad just gave up where he keeps his precious metals.
I know.
Buried close by the house. Don't be fooled by the empty mounds.
Yeah, and you saw that he like added that. Oh, I'm too poor, by the way.
Yeah,
So-
right. Yeah.
Well, no,
He's
I mean-
way too poor.
Yeah, if you think I've got precious metals,
He said taxes is low cost living. So-
I'm way too poor for that. I would never. But here's how you do it.
I would never. I've spent all my money on guns. Stay off my property.
Well, that's true. Yeah, that's true.
I don't think he's kidding.
No, he is not.
Refer to episode 7. Okay.
He saw me trying to dig up the gold last time. Find some warning shots. All right, that was fun, but we got one more proposition to talk about. So here's how Proposition 10 will read on your ballot. The constitutional amendment to allow the transfer of law enforcement animals to a qualified caretaker in certain circumstances. How y'all feel about that?
Purposefully elusive. What are certain circumstances?
Same. I fucking look. I think that. So I am very much an animal guy. Love animals. My guns are not for them. Right. So to me, I see animal, I start getting a little more concerned. But yeah, certain circumstances, I don't know what that means.
Right.
And it becomes, further on, it's we were reading a little bit before the show and kind of discussing this one, and it was the one that said if the handler retires before the animal's ready to retire, then where's it going to go to that? And does it get retired? And I already kind of have a borderline issue with the whole police dog thing because I understand the usefulness of having police dogs, but I also think that I don't believe in animals being utilitarian. So I have an issue with that, though I do understand. I understand that they've done well with that and everything, but I think by now we should have some fucking robots on the job. All right? And also, I'll take any retired police dogs, and they can come live at my house, and I will...
You better stop messing
And they're
around.
protected by guns.
Blind, limpy, fat ones.
Send me them blind fat ones.
Yeah, I'll take them all.
And they will protect Chad's gold 24.
They will protect my gold. I won't even need to bring my guns out anymore. It's just an army of police dogs.
But you did say the blind limpy one. So
Hey, fuck it. You got enough numbers
Barking in the wrong
going.
direction and shit.
Yeah, you
they'll
get
find the drugs. They may not find the.
Look, if you get like the blind one's got like 2 legs, but you put them all together into one. Oh
my God.
Like dog army, they're gonna do something.
Okay, at the end of
Most
the
of
day,
their
I just... Why are we putting this as a constitutional amendment?
Amen, Ryan.
Also,
That's
Can
the
you
truth.
give me something else to work with? Again.
Right, we're
I'm
right.
always gonna, let's talk about the minorities. Let's talk about the low income students. Let's talk about low income neighborhoods. Can you give me something that matters? I'm like, what is this? What is this? Right?
BK, where you at?
I'm in favor of Fido.
Oh my God. Well, that's a good take.
I do want to know what the special circumstances are, though. That's the one that
That's
gives me
what I'm
like
saying.
because to me it's like, well, fuck, why would you charge a fee? Oh, because that was the other thing is like it would be done without a fee. Well, if someone wants to house a retired police dog, then let them house the fucking dog. Why would there be a fee in the first place? And what are the circumstances? It's insanity.
To think of something like this that seems like, why can't they just do that now?
Exactly.
The Constitution is not like a love note. You can't just change it whenever you want. This is the Constitution. Why are we putting such a little thing on such a big thing?
Wait, why are you changing your love notes, bro?
Exactly.
Well, sometimes you have to. Things don't work out. You got to change it up.
We'll come back to that.
No, we will not.
I mean, yes,
I want to remind people that that's.
No comment on that one.
Yeah, let's move on, please. Okay. Do you guys want to say anything else about the propositions? If not, there's some other stuff we should just glance over real quick.
I think I'm all full on propositions.
No kidding, man. Can you even imagine? I mean, we are all people who pay attention to this shit, but it is still fucking boring to talk. I mean, to just even read about some of this stuff. For somebody who doesn't give a shit, how do we even get them involved?
Well, I'm going to say a lot of these are written so as to be no-brainers in the sense of people that are not used to. So the people that are used to participating, right, are going to vote no-brainer. The people that may not be used to are going to vote no-brainer. They're purposefully written to benefit who they're supposed to benefit, right? To the point where you may not understand them, you're not able to get all the information, certain circumstances, they're purposefully elusive. So for me, I feel like you need to pay attention, you need to do your research, and it's very obvious that there's an agenda behind all of this. So in my opinion, I just don't agree with the elusiveness of it all. If you're going to bring a proposition to the Constitution, can I have some clarifications?
So here's where I might split off a little bit from the pack, being that I am a fucking nerd. So I actually really like reading through them, and I like getting through like the lawyerly phrasing that they use and trying to figure out like, okay, wait a fucking minute. That's why you'll notice like a lot of the comments we had today were like, okay, well, wait, what does that mean? What's a special circumstance? What do they mean, when deemed by this group? And I like going through and kind of finding that because I think that that's something to watch out for. And honestly, I think it makes it way more fun to go through and go, wait a minute, what's this? And then you get to be kind of like, get a little sleuthy with it. And, maybe that's just me being a fucking indoor kid, but I think that it is super fun to try to figure out, like, wait a minute, what's that little trick you're doing?
Well, that was a beautiful take on that, Chad. BK, what you got?
What were we talking about?
Anything you want to say about the constitutional amendment?
Exactly.
That's how fucking interesting they are. A co-host checked up. All right, so don't forget, on some of the ballots that you guys will see, you will see some other races. Because of the way that the nonprofit rules are set up, we can't tell you too much about any of this. All I can do is tell you what's going to be on the ballot. So here's what you got. The San Antonio River Authority will have their general election, and that's for District Number 1. I'm just going to run over these. I can't tell you guys too much more. You'll have to do the investigation on your own. The Green Valley Special Utility District will be having a general election, and you have 4 options to choose from on that one. The City of Castle Hills will have a special election for aldermen in places 1 and 3. In both races, you have 2 different candidates. The City of Converse will have a general election for their mayor, City Council Place 1, City Council Place 3, and City Council Place 5. Yeah, I know. In the mayor's race, Place 3 and Place 5, there's 3 candidates in each. For Place 1, you guys got a bevy of options. There's over 5 candidates, so enjoy that. Anything you guys want to tell people about voting in general before we get out of here?
Damn, just if you live in Converse, get the fuck out. That's a lot. I didn't realize I had that much on the ballot.
Yeah, that's a serious one.
Also, I'm going to be putting some money on that alderman race if anybody's interested in talking after the show.
All right. Yeah, I am.
And vote early. Vote early.
Yeah, vote early.
Yeah.
Oh God, vote early. Don't go the day of. Fuck. It's go the day of if you have to, because you do get those 2 free hours. Don't forget about that. Mm-hmm. Let your employer pay for it. But God, if you go early, just seriously, just drive by a middle school. It's probably a place you can vote. Go in there, find a voting box.
And depending on who the election judge is, where you go on election day, some of them are very picky. You don't know what you're going to encounter. You don't know if maybe your ID's expired. Maybe your address has changed. Maybe your last name has changed.
Even if your ID is expired, that was my phone. Even if your ID is expired, you can still vote. You can still legally vote. It's actually, I think it's up to a year, maybe 2 years. You can actually go to the Bexar County elections and read the verbiage and find out if you can legally vote. But even if your ID is expired, you can still vote.
Ryan, anything you guys say to close out?
I'm going to say don't be overwhelmed by all of these propositions. They're expecting like a 5% turnout, right? So we're not going to let 5% of the people that are eligible to vote decide all of these things. These with the words never and ever and certain circumstances. I'm sorry, but we need to get out and vote. So don't be overwhelmed. Do your research, and we believe in you. We believe in you, Texas.
Hey guys, we did some good today. How do you guys like this episode? Mm-hmm. All right, ladies and gentlemen,
this was fun.
It was.
Yeah,
I had a good time. Okay, folks, so we're going to do some audience questions now. For the folks who have been here to listen to the recording, they're going to ask some of the questions that they've had from our conversation throughout. And don't forget, if you'd like to join us for a live recording, follow us on Instagram at @get_Texas for more information. So we have with us today, honored guest, Kiara.
Hi guys, I'm Kiara.
And tell us your question.
I had the question of which of these 10 do y'all feel are the most important, or that people should, even if you're listening to this podcast or in the audience, that you would suggest going home and really thinking on and elaborating on more?
So I'm going to give kind of what sounds like a cop-out answer, and then I'll clarify. Honestly, all 10 are important because you're looking at constitutional amendments. These are not something that's like, okay, well, for the next year we'll do this, and then we'll do. They get voted in through an amendment, and then they're on it. They're on the state constitution, and you have to have another constitutional amendment to undo them. So there is some permanency in all the decisions being made here. That being said, I really like the Texas wildlife one, personally.
Yeah.
That one I think is the most, speaks to me the most, but I think all 10 are very important because of the permanency of it.
I'm going to agree with Chad because, for one, you're going to have to vote on... If you go vote, you're going to have to vote on all of them, right? So do your research on all of them. But I'm going to say mine, as most interesting, I think, is Prop 4 about the personal income tax. It's just interesting. It's literally about more money, less money. Where's that money coming from? So I'm going to say Prop 4. But again, if you're going to vote, you're going to have to vote for all of them. So do your research.
Definitely Prop 4 and the personal income tax. I think that's going to be pretty much a definer of whether Texas continues to grow in population, if we can actually influence future voting as well, perhaps. But Proposition 4 for sure.
So for me, I'm split in between Proposition 1 and Proposition 4. On 4, I cannot be more clear. Do not let the government touch your money. Once they touch it, they will never give it back.
Don't let them take your guns.
But that's true too, but we're not into that today. So let's talk about Proposition 1. The other thing too, on the Proposition 1 is politicians are sometimes incredibly popular for reasons that we don't understand. And when that happens, somebody who takes advantage of what this constitutional amendment could could really, really, really mess things up. You could have one person having way more power than they ever ought to. So those are my takes. All right, we got more audience questions coming up. Here we go. Sir, introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Nicholas Welch. I'm a felon.
Okay.
And people who have felonies are under the impression that they can't vote, that their vote isn't welcome. Is this true? I asked this question because a few years ago, I was at the Martin Luther King March, and I asked, one of the guys came up to me and was like, hey, why don't you vote? And I was like, I can't vote. I'm a felon. And he told me no. He said, no, sir. As long as you aren't on paper and you're done with your time or haven't done that, you can vote. And I mean, that really shocked me. And I have friends and family that just don't even care to even think about voting because it's been said, you can't.
Man, I'm so glad you brought that up. You're educating me today. I didn't even know that was true. I think Chad has something to jump into the questions with.
Okay, yeah. Well, our producer is confirming that, yes, as long as you're off paper, you're good to vote in.
Felons who have completed their sentences are allowed to vote in most U.S. states, right?
And that's across Texas as well?
Yeah.
Now, and just to be clear, papers is probation. So once you're off probation, you're able to do those things.
Probation or parole, yeah. And I think that's actually a really important thing. Fuck, that might be the most important thing that we've talked about today.
I know, seriously.
Because you've got,
Yeah.
Hell yeah,
Good
man.
question, man.
And not only that, I think the story that he told, right? This is another way that you see that certain groups of people are being suppressed because, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's true. I've never seen a billboard or it's something, hey, you felons, no, you guys need to get in here too. And I know a lot of felons, and I grew up on the East Side, and it's sad really that people turn away because your father. I mean, I ain't gonna say your father, but some people's mothers and fathers walk around with that on their back,
Right.
And for them not to even, if they're not doing it, how are they gonna teach their kids?
Yeah.
So it's something serious to think about. You don't just have male felons; there are female felons out there. It's a big conspiracy to make people who aren't conscious uncomfortable with even caring to vote. And then it's just something that I think that there should be a little more publicity towards. Hey, dude, just because you're a felon doesn't mean that you can't get in here and help with the decision making. In Texas, at least.
I love that.
And on that note, there needs to be more activism as well. If we can actually get voter registration and people informed about voting inside these areas, like prisons and jails and within certain places that traditionally they're under the impression that they can't vote, that's going to make a difference as well.
Yeah.
Well, there's obviously a consciousness behind not letting people know. Mm-hmm. It's because you would kind of think that maybe that would be part of a release program or part of when you're finishing parole. Hey, now these are the things that you get back. But it doesn't seem like that's what's happening. It's like, okay, well, you're done, and that's it. So it really it's almost this kind of like weird kind of like backdoor voter suppression where it's like maybe they're not, the guy he was talking about in his story who said like, no, like that's great. Like he informed him, no, you can come in. But if you don't even go in and try to vote or you don't talk to somebody, how would you know? That information is not getting out there, And the idea, I think that we all think kind of in federal terms and we're like, okay, well, I know that's a big thing that's going on in Florida right now and restoring voter rights has been kind of lightly trending in the news cycle a little bit. But I think that's an amazing kind of point to bring up that I don't know that we've considered enough at this table, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to say next time we will definitely bring you more transparent information about that. It's a great point that was brought up, and I love that. Another group of voters that should be empowered. So that's our job.
Hey, fabulous, you guys. Big thank you to the audience for the questions. Those are fantastic. All right, guys. Well, I'm Roy. This is
Ryan.
Chad.
B.K.
And we want to say thank you guys so much for listening. We hope that you found it informative. And if you have, make sure that you subscribe, that you like us on Facebook, that you follow us on Instagram. If you'd like to help continue the movement, make sure that you contact us to make a donation. And last but not least, let me just say to you guys, join us next week where we're going to get it again. Yeah. Thank you guys.